worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends? Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends? Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. Tyler, Phil, and Boris. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all in Canon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the It's Canon podcast. The podcast where we talk about all things video games, all things toys, all things books, all things comic books, all things movies, all things Star Wars, all things Lego, all things everything. And the best part of it all is that it's all in canon. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Boris, and this week I'm joined by Phil.
Candy cane toothpaste.
And Tyler.
Oh, gross. Why would you put that in my mind?
Well, it's better than beer and coffee. Come on.
I disagree.
I wanted to throw Boris off, and he didn't even budge on that one. So
Nope.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen. Not today, Satan.
Again.
Not today.
not gonna happen again.
Yeah, again. Sunday, guys. It's Sunday. That means that today we're going to be talking all things news. We're going to be talking about the anime race. We're going to be talking about, cutting the price of WB movies in theaters, because that's going to show a WB. We're going to be talking about people finally being able to watch Tenet. We are also going to be talking about the fallout of Cyberpunk 2077, and I promise this is the last time we're going to be talking about that, because we're going to let people work. We're going to let people figure shit out. But we do want to give an
let's
update
at least...
to
Yeah.
a few important
Provided
things.
there's not an issue with that.
Well, yeah, if all of a sudden they're like, actually, we've decided the game's not being supported anymore, we're going to report on that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Never say never, my friend.
We're gonna try to give a break from reportage until there's actual news, instead of this, like, it's still a mess. It's still a mess. It's still a mess.
Yeah, we just want to avoid the dog pile. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the dog piles have been a little, some of it been deserved, but a lot of it has been, kind of bullshit. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Yeah. But before we do all that, Phil, what's new with you? What's going on in the world of Phil?
Man, enjoying Stadia life. Enjoying Star Wars. Enjoying video gaming. And you know what's... I'll talk about it when we get to it, but I do have friends that have experiences with the PS4 and Cyberpunk as well. But, and Animal Crossing, man. I'm telling you. Animal Crossing. It's Christmas on the island.
Okay.
It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Last night, I was walking around my island and I was doing my KK Slider concert.
Your what?
Cook a
KK
slider.
Yeah, the dog comes and plays a show.
All right. Whoa. I thought you said...
And
I heard something completely different.
no. It's Animal Crossing. It's pure. It's family. But the thing is that it's snow everywhere, so you can see every single creature, and a tarantula ran past me. And that made me freak out, because tarantulas are back. It was scorpions, now it's tarantulas. So people, be careful after 7 o'clock when you're playing on your island. Watch out for the tarantulas. That's my health and safety update for
Tyler,
Animal Crossing.
How's it going with you? What's new? What's exciting?
It's Christmas, and my day job's in retail, and my other job is doing reporting. I have been barely sleeping and trying to build a server on top of all of it. So maybe I'm making some mistakes somewhere. I'm very busy, and I'm losing my mind.
Yeah. I know some mistakes you've made watching Star Trek Lower Decks.
God. That show.
I finally finished it last night. Oh.
It's done.
Yeah, we just have to finish our 12 days of torture. Jeez.
We're close.
Yeah, we're close.
The
We're
end
very
in
close.
sight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so that is a perfect segue to talk about what's coming up here on the It's Canon podcast. It is Christmas, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop giving you shows for your eardrums. We are going to finish off our 12 days of Christmas. Today we are on day 7. Tomorrow, 8. Day after that,
Yeah, talking about
9.
dog piles.
Yep, so every day until episode 10, day 10, we're going to be talking about Star Trek Lower Decks, or trying to, as I drink beer and coffee and eat panettone, as I pick up Amazon packages, as I, we vamp, I hit record without telling you guys. Yep, it's been that type of 12 days, but that's where we're at. So
It's every podcast we hate, we're doing.
yeah, talking over each other, laughing, inside jokes. It's literally every podcast I hate, but here we are.
Soon we're going to have Joe Rogan on as a guest.
Oh, God.
You wouldn't take the time to talk to him?
I would.
I don't think I would, because to what end? Like, I don't think you can pin the guy down on anything. I don't think. I mean, this is a little bit of a deep cut, but I think it's a little bit like talking to one of those right-wing nut jobs. I'm not actually saying he's a right-wing nut job here, but I'm saying, like, to what end would I get if I interviewed Ben Shapiro? Like, he's not gonna commit to anything.
Yeah.
He's gonna, or it's not gonna change anything, right? Like, it's. I would much rather interview someone like, I want to interview Joe Rogan's producer, and be like, what do you think about the fact that this has enabled conspiracism to run rampant?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If I had the chance to talk with him or interview him or whatever, I'd love. The stuff that I enjoy. I don't like this new conspiracy world we live in. I find that conspiracy is really a dangerous thing now because of how politicized it is, and I think that affects our view of Joe.
Yeah.
But I'd love to talk about the old conspiracy stuff like UFOs.
Yeah.
And
Oh God, you can't. It's not. There's not separate. I've literally written a book and done reporting on it, and it's all the same thing.
Yep.
Like the
why do you
overlap between QAnon and flat earthers is so much more than you would think. Donald Trump Jr. was a guest of honor at a flat Earth convention in 2018.
Jeez.
Like, there is no, you can't. It's. I mean, then you go back to the fact that it's all anti-Jewish stuff, right? QAnon leads to the JQ. Ben Shapiro talks about how the difference between ethnic Jews and like real Jews, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yep. And
Okay.
that's why
Yeah, I
we've
wanna steer
like,
clear.
I wish we did that episode a few years ago, Tyler, when we expanded away from comics. We had awesome guests lined up, but it just time and real life became an issue. But I wish we did that conspiracy show way back when, because that's not anything we'll be able to do anytime soon.
Yeah, I think if you were established enough of a brand that you could actually be attacking conspiracism, you'd have a chance.
Yeah.
But I think if we were to try to start a conspiracism, and I use that word specifically, because that is like the study of conspiracy theories versus like, I'm not a conspiracy theory believer.
Yeah.
You'd be much, because I think if you started one right now and you got any traction, you'd end up with lunatics after you so fast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be accused of being Satan, you'd be getting doxxed instantly.
Yep. 100%.
Let's just leave that alone.
So 12 days of Christmas, which leads us into Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, Phil and Tyler are going to get a little break. Matt and I are going to take over, and we're going to be talking all things wrestling. We have 2 From the Vault shows on Christmas Eve. That will be day 11 of our 12 days of Christmas, and then day 12 on Christmas Day. We have a fun show ready for you. Well, it's not ready, per se. It's planned.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, I guess, we're going to live meeting, guys. What are we going to do for Christmas? We have a couple options. we can take the week off and do a From the Vault episode. There's 2 episodes that I'm eyeing to put up in place of our regular news episode. I guess the question I should ask is, when are we going to take the week off? Next week or the week after that? Because we're going to have a best and worst episode. Best whatever movie, worst movie, best comic book, worst comic book. So I'm easygoing.
I'm gonna be a little bit of a pain, and I think we were talking about a certain news story before we opened recording, and I think we need to see if that ends up being correct, because that determines the rest of my next 2 weeks.
Yeah, you're right.
Right? Because if all of a sudden I have World A going on, my availability is much different than if World B goes along.
Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. All right. So,
well, I'm working from home, so I'm good for anything.
Exactly, same here. But I have a couple episodes lined up, and they are going to be very fun episodes. So it's funny because yesterday I was looking over the vault of the It's Canon podcast vault, and man, oh man, has the show changed a lot. Number 1, we've added Phil. Kyle, who knows where he is, dropped off the face of the earth, went back home to his home planet, is a secret spy, like Tyler and I always thought. We don't know. So that's change number 1. Change number 2 is just the format from all comics to everything but comics. And even just the way that we talk. It's just so different. But anyways, I was able to get some of the older episodes, and I'm going to have to remaster them. I'm going to be George Lucas and remaster them. Maybe add like some...
McClunky.
Yes. Maybe add some yelps in the middle of it. We'll see.
Wilhelm screams.
Yep. But there's 2 episodes that I'm eyeing to releasing, and that's because they were actually some of the better episodes. Oddly enough, Kyle isn't in either episode. And that made me laugh. It was just Tyler and me. The first episode is our hour-long review of the Killing Joke movie.
I can't remember what I said. I think my thoughts on that movie have evolved since then, and I think I hate it more.
Okay. And that's why I think it would be great for us to release that and then revisit that movie, because you brought that up last week when we were doing some 12 Days of Christmas recording, so it'd be a lot of fun to kind of revisit that. The other episode that I'm eyeing, and I would only release the first half, and that's the original Jim Zub interview, because listening back to what he was talking about, and he was talking about some of the properties and some of the IPs that he really wants to write and hopes he can one day write, well, he wrote them. So...
Almost all of them.
Yeah. It's really funny and really weird. But I was re-listening to that episode, and it was a great chat with him. Even a year ago, it was an hour-and-a-half long chat that we had with him. But yeah, I will probably release some of those episodes during the break. And then we're going to give you our best and worst of 2020 at some point. So stay tuned as we talk about that. So... are we ready for some news, guys?
I'm ready.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Cyberpunk 2077. It's been a week. Ooh. It's been a crazy week for the game. From refunds to no refunds to refunds again to it being taken off of the Sony store and the Microsoft store to infighting within the company to C-level execs getting shit on by employees to IGN saying this is the worst game ever, then to IGN saying we need to cut this game some slack, to fan backlash, to just about everything in between. This week has been a hell of a week for CD Projekt Red. So this question is going to be twofold. Question number 1, how's your experience with the game? And question number 2 is, what are your thoughts on the entire situation and how CD Projekt Red is handling it? Tyler?
I mean, I'm still loving the game. Like it's especially if you're not mainlining the main quest, there's so much going on there.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing some people shit on like the main quest is only like 30 hours, and I'm like, isn't if you mainline The Witcher, Like if you mainline the main Witcher thing, it's only about 30 hours as well. And part of that is in The Witcher 3, it's a little bit more obvious, or so it's a little bit less obvious when you can just abandon a quest and just go to the next thing. It's very easy to be like, well, I have to stay here and finish these issues I need to deal with, and you don't. You can just leave. And then I don't know. I'm still finding I've hit a few more bugs than we had before. It's still not too bad. There was one mission I had that like the world design was a little bit funky. It didn't flow quite right, but this is such a like it encouraged you to go to point A through like path design.
Yeah.
And actually you wanted to go to point B, which is like, they had a little bit of a mess up in this area design, but okay. I overall I'm still enjoying it. I'm still having a really good time. I've also like everyone I've talked to, and again, I am fully owning this as anecdotal evidence, but I only have one person who tried to play it on a PS4 and found it didn't work. I have 2 people I've talked to and know who are just playing it on the PS4. And they're like, yeah, it's downsampled a bit, but it's fine. And there's someone who's playing it on their there's someone who's playing on their PC on the 1080, and they're also like, it's actually pretty, it's like, it's good. So, I don't know. The fact that CD Projekt Red, like the fact that the staff were able to very apparently kind of be like, we were over-siloed, what the hell was management thinking?
Yeah.
Is honestly like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. It's, we should have seen this coming when the staff said, what the fuck, when they were shocked about the latest and the last delay. So there was obviously silos. There was obviously some communication issues where the managers were kind of making decisions and not informing everyone. That's a thing. I've been there. I've seen it firsthand, and it's really shitty. You know what the worst thing in being in tech is? Finding out news from the news, not from your superiors.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. But, do you think, Phil, how about you? Before I ask that question, Phil, your experiences.
Mine have been good so far. Like, Stadia is remarkably stable, remarkably capable of handling everything that I'm throwing at it, or everything that Cyberpunk throws at it. So I'm very thankful overall about the fact that I went that route that you guys encouraged me to. I'm very thankful for it, because I don't know that I would have enjoyed it super great on my PS4 Pro, but I don't think I would have had a tough time with it. Now, what's happened from my understanding, and some of this is rumor, I guess, but apparently CD Projekt Red didn't really communicate to Sony or Microsoft about the refunds. They just kind of made that kind of bit known, and now it's believed, it's being speculated on, so I firmly put that into that bin, but it's being speculated that the move by Sony on Friday to basically issue refunds and take it off the store was Sony's way of getting back at CD Projekt Red, like just throwing a little monkey wrench into the pudding. Like, fuck you, you're not going to talk to us? Well, we're going to pull your game. And Microsoft similarly followed suit after a lot of executives came out and said, well, we're not having this problem with Microsoft. Then boom, Microsoft did it. So there's a lot happening behind the scenes. I have friends who are playing it on PS4, and one of them shockingly refunded. And I was a little bit surprised at that, because I thought they were both fairly happy with their experience on it. And one guy is dumping loads of time into it on his PS4 and does not have any complaints. Another guy I thought was having a good time with it, decided to return it, was asking me about Stadia. I think he was like, well, if I get a free controller and all that, then I had to tell him, well, that promotion's over, dude. So you kind of missed the boat on that. However, you can use your regular controller if you want. So I'm trying to find out if he's actually going to re-engage on the game, because I did, through talking to him, find out that his return wasn't predicated on the actual issues that Cyberpunk are dealing with.
Yep.
He didn't like the driving component. He didn't like some of the bugs and things, and that's why he justified the return in his mind. And
Yeah.
Sony were just like, "Hey, we're going to give you your money back no matter what." So I'm a little bit miffed with them, because I'm like, well, that's not the reason why they issued the refund in principle, right?
Yeah.
It's the frames per second, or the actual playability, or the broken level of the game for your experience. I'm disappointed in CD Projekt Red in the sense that I wish they would have paid more attention to that base console, because it's obviously a big driver of sales and whatnot. It's just too bad, and I hope that they get it fixed. I really do. I want to see this company succeed. I don't want to see the internet freaking out the way it is either, because it's not fair to all these people who put in a lot of hard work. It just sounds like what Tyler had said, that there was over siloing and a mismanaged component of it that resulted in this. And it's too bad that it happened to them. And I hope that they get it fixed. My big takeaway after thinking about a lot and thinking about my experience with video gaming and all the different companies that have pissed me off in the past.
Yeah.
But I still regularly engage in their product. I just wish that this would have happened earlier in the video game life.
Yeah.
Instead of it happening to CD Projekt Red, I would have liked it to have happened to Bethesda. I would have liked it to have happened to Ubisoft. I would have liked it to happen to these big offenders that released dog piles of games on consoles that were current gen. And I don't really get into this whole, well, the PS4 is last gen. No, the PS5 has been out for a month. All right. The PS4 is still a current gen console. Once the base grows for PS5s and Xbox Series X's, then that becomes the new champion. That becomes what you aim to develop for. I get it. But when they developed this game over the past 8 years, PS4 hardware was prime. And it should be playable on that. That's my only issue. Or do exactly what retroactively we know. Release it on PC first. If you're not happy with current consoles, the current established base, then you have to put on the big boy pants and go, we're only releasing this on PC and maybe Stadia, this controlled experience. Because the thing that I have a big problem with as well is that on the review copies, they were only PC. The people weren't allowed to show the review copy. So that to me signals that somebody at CD Projekt Red was like, we have a big fucking problem, but we're going ahead with it anyway. Right? Those things worry me. And I hope that CD Projekt Red address them internally. We don't need to be educated about it. We just need to be assured and then prove it. Next game that comes out, don't make those missteps. That simple. Look at that. We solved it. I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys' thoughts on any of that?
I mean, I think it really seems like, and this is why I think we're all stopping covering it right now, is so much of this is going to be a business case of whose fault is this and to what extent, right? It's super easy now for them to all play the PR game. And I mean, I get kind of frustrated with how easy we all fall for it. We even fell for it with Sony and Marvel negotiating over Spider-Man. That was done in the public sphere because they can do it, and somewhere at a boardroom they decide, we're not the ones who are getting death threats, so it's just acceptable to do. And developers continue to get death threats and to continue to get attacked, and voice actors get attacked again, which is they have nothing to do with this. So this keeps on keeping on.
Yeah,
it's sad.
Yeah, no,
but
it's
it needs to happen.
Crazy. Yeah. Do you think
it needs to happen?
Do you think that this is going to be a learning experience for other studios, or are video gamers and gamers' memories so short that we're gonna forget about this entire ordeal and just shit on the next major game that fucks up?
That second one.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
No one learns it, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am going to be very interested to see what those return numbers are, because I don't think they're going to be as high as a lot of people think.
Agreed.
I mean, a great example is, despite, like, I think what we're seeing on social media is there's a lot of people who are hating on the game because hate and vitriol does better on social networks and social media than enjoying a thing does.
Mhm.
And if you look at, for an example, Green Man Gaming had their vote for the best game of the year thing recently, and Cyberpunk won. Like, it won against like Doom Eternal. So people are enjoying it. I just think that they're not the ones who are on Reddit, right? Like, I think that instead of being on Reddit bitching, they see how toxic that is, and they're like, well, I'm just gonna go back to playing Cyberpunk.
Yeah, exactly. At the end
Now,
of the day,
I agree with you, Tyler. The return numbers, I think, are not going to be that big. But apparently, about 40% of the game sales fall into the console-ish territory at a good guesstimate. One thing that did happen on Friday was the stock took a beating.
Yeah,
Like, I think we're down to like 22%.
25 to 30% at the worst.
Yeah.
I think it has
So
a
they
small
lost
recovery.
They lost over $1 billion.
Yeah.
Now they have lots
No.
of money.
No, they
No.
didn't
That
lose
was
over $1 billion.
valuation
The value of the company was down, which is based
Yeah.
upon perception. The actual company loses no money for the stock
Yeah.
price changing.
Correct.
That means he'll perceive the company being worth less. We just want to be very specific. We're going to say they lost $1 billion because all of a sudden someone's going to cite us.
yeah,
Oh,
Ah!
no. I had heard that reported, but it was in that context. I was going to clarify, like, that just means the stock price took a hit.
Oh, yeah.
That reflects that amount of money, but it's not coming out of their pocket. It's not like $1 billion left the company. They have lots of money to fix this. they
have
and they will.
bananas money.
And then
Yeah.
the money goes back into the company
Yeah.
in the stock. You know what I mean? So it's
Well,
just
and the stock
opinion.
and the stock was arguably hot
Mhm.
because of this game coming out.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so as doing our due diligence, I own stock in OTGLY, which is one of the ways foreigners can invest in CD Projekt Red. And my holdings are reporting down 31.33% since whenever the last time I ran this report was. Which was during the worst of it.
yeah. That's a hit for sure. Here's a couple things that need to happen, in my opinion, and you guys can shoot this down right away as I'm talking. Because, as talks of lawsuits rise, I think that C-levels at CD Projekt Red need to step down ASAP. Regardless of how into it, how much they knew, how much they didn't know, it doesn't matter. It's always a good sign when C-level execs step down. It just, because, at the end of the day, it's on their stage. So, that's number one. Number two, and we're already seeing this right now, and that CD Projekt Red is committed to this game.
Mhm.
At the very least,
Yep.
they basically said, we will fix this game. From an optics PR point of view, that's really the best move you can do. And now at this point, along with this, is they're going to need to continually and aggressively over-communicate almost,
I don't know if they want to over-communicate.
No, I don't mean over-communicate to the point like every day you're going to send a press release. But I think that you're going to have to actively show that you are committed to fixing this game by having set, every 2 weeks you're going to get a patch or something like that, right? Like every dev window. And then once every little bit, just give an update on kind of the state of play for that game. But we're already seeing that CD Projekt Red is committed to fix this game, and that's the very least that you can ask for. But I still think that, some heads will have to roll because things are just going to get nasty. Like, you've lost confidence within your ranks. Something needs to happen there, or else this company is going to see more delays in the, 6-7 projects they have slated for 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah, and it seems like the employees from the reports. No, they're not confirmed. They're not there's not like reporters sitting in on these meetings, but they are reported on. The employees seem to have a pretty genuine level of frustration with some of how all of this, how they're being treated, right? Not only
Yep.
by the public, as Tyler pointed out, but even within their own ranks, that these concerns were possibly brought to light earlier and not really acted upon,
Yep.
which is a very frustrating place for anyone to be in.
Yeah, and again,
feel bad.
I've been there. I know how that feels. I know how it feels when you tell management, this is not working. This is not good. And they ignore you. And then you get shit on. And then it's like, well, you guys need to work harder. We fucking told you. So, yeah. A lot of this is just coming from experience, and yeah, it's not a fun place to be in. And this is why I think one of the most important things we can do as quote-unquote journalists, podcasters, people who share opinions and about news that's happening, and that is to leave these guys alone, let them fix their issues, let these issues get fixed by CD Projekt Red, let the game evolve, let the game get better, let them figure out what it is they need to figure out. We will update you if something breaks major, whether it be the game literally breaking or the game improving, but I think it would be a good position for us to just let CD Projekt Red do their thing and improve the game and show that commitment to their consumers.
Correct. And
got
also
it.
we can go back and play it. Instead of reading the internet and all the horror stories that the internet can generate.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah. Also, like, yeah, the meme capacity of here's a dumb thing that happened to glitch in my game. It's in part why I bring up my own anecdotes. Is it's like that only like that requires one person, and then 10,000 people will go, see, it's garbage, and every game has those. It's how memeable they are, and that's what that is. Whether you liked Andromeda or disliked it, its initial critical round was super hurt by a few memes about it.
Yep. And that's the thing.
Hell,
Perception,
even
consumer
Halo
perception.
Infinite.
Yeah.
Halo
Consumer-
Infinite, like the Craig guy that they isolated and whatnot, he had like 3 seconds on camera in that demo, and that became a meme of just huge proportions that ultimately delayed the product launch and everything. Now it certainly sounds like, you know, the developers 343 Studios were having developmental issues and weren't really being forthright about it. But my goodness, like the internet can be a very mean place when it comes to that.
One thing I was thinking about, and this is literally the last point, and this is somewhere, someone at 343 is saying, woo, thank God we delayed.
Otherwise, the It's Canon podcast hits would be through the roof. 343, ruined Halo.
343, ruined Halo. 343, ruined Halo. 343, ruined Halo. Gotta get that SEO score.
Yeah. Sorry, Jason. I know Parisito is going to be listening, so he's a big Halo fan.
So are we. But, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for, was it 5 hit my worst list?
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Yeah, so that's that, guys. Let's go back to enjoy the game. I've been enjoying it a lot. I've had one crash in a week. But outside of that, it's been a very fun game. I've had a lot of fun playing it so far, and I can't wait to continue. And I'm looking forward to whatever CD Projekt Red does with the game. So that's that. All right, let's move on, and let's talk about an industry that we rarely talk about on the show, but it's an ever-growing, untapped industry. We know that the video game industry in the U.S. can generate up to $35.4 billion. That was the video
With a
game.
B.
Billion. With a B. Billion. That was the U.S. video game revenue in 2019. In the world, in 2018, it was worth $138.7 billion. Now, this is chump change, but it's still worth noting, and that's anime. Anime brings in more than $19 billion a year. Now,
That's a lot of money.
where am I going with this? This is in the world. Where am I going with this?
The world.
and that's the untapped market that is the USA. As
Mm.
niche as anime is, it's still a very popular market. There's always that one big anime show that everyone's watching: Attack on Titan, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, what have you. There's always those few anime shows that always like make it big here in North America. But with streaming services such as Funimation and Crunchyroll, they've been able to kind of simulcast the anime shows that are being aired in Japan here in North America, and that's been huge. Now, one thing that we've been saying is more is more. Sometimes more is not always good. Too much choice is not always good. We're seeing this in streaming services when it comes to HBO Max, Netflix, Peacock, CBS All Access, etc., etc., etc. And here in this in the United States, you used to see Crunchyroll and Funimation. Well, no more. USA is consolidating their viewers as Sony sells Crunchyroll to Funimation. This has a lot of insiders and fans a little worried because now it's the one streaming service to rule them all. It comes down to what Funimation wants you to watch. They both show very different things. Crunchyroll is more of a simulcast service with what's hot in the USA. They have a lot of exclusives. Funimation gets a lot of bad reputation for the horrible apps that they support, it's just barely working apps, especially on like the PS4 and Xbox. But in terms of the anime market, and in terms of this untapped resource, do you see this being a good thing or a bad thing? I know that we don't typically talk about anime in general, but what are your initial thoughts on the one to rule them all, Phil?
I'm not a big fan of it. I especially if their apps are less than desirable on big platforms like Sony and whatnot. I can't imagine that those apps are thriving on other lesser known services per se. I'm not a big fan of the idea of the corporate thing, but I do, I can concede too much sometimes confuses the marketplace, like too much choice. But it seems like the fan bases have their reasons for going to each thing. And, the concern would be that Funimation doesn't honor the legacy or the true intention of Crunchyroll. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that simulcast unfiltered Japanese access, right? Like to that market, to where it's thriving. I think that there's something noble and whatnot. It's not really in my apple cart as far as what I've tried watching Crunchyroll. Like I have a tough time even on Netflix sometimes with anime because I do like it to be dubbed. I'm one of those guys. I don't mind the subtitles when I understand already what the story is, but I find it very distracting to read subtitles and watch the show.
Now, you brought up a great point, and that is Netflix. So it is not really the one to rule them all. Netflix is still a huge player in the anime space, and they, in fact, they more than doubled their viewers of anime in 2020, as far as we know, and the numbers that have been provided. And this is all a counter programming to Disney Plus and the animation of Disney and the power of Disney. So this is why I think that anime is going to only become a more important factor to streaming services as they try to fight against Disney and Disney Plus. Tyler, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know on this one. I have very mixed views on anime, kind of generally. So I don't know. I'm being very unhelpful here. I know that.
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah. Do you think here? Let me rephrase it. Do you think that anime right now is getting a lot of attention by some companies to counter program Disney?
maybe that might be their intent, but and again, I'm going to rely on the anecdote of what I'm seeing, and the limited data I've seen is that as soon as one of these shows hits Netflix specifically, it hits like a bomb. And we see in the retail space that the manga and any merch you have to go along with any of the ones that hits Netflix and does well in the Netflix algorithm does super well with like the tween teen range. So I mean, this year we're looking at Hunter x Hunter, we're looking at Haikyuu, we're looking at a few others that are doing really well in Canada, and I don't know how much of that is trying to counter program Disney, because I don't know how well Disney's offering in the teen space does, other than Marvel, which is just kind of like it's in everyone. Yeah. I don't think Disney has a teen-tween model at the moment.
They don't.
It's just like we catch them with everyone else with our over-the-top family movies.
Yeah.
Well, I think it fits into something though, what you're bringing up about those markets, in that's what Netflix are trying to attain, right? Is getting that group, and maybe they aren't happy in the Disney space, so it's not really taking a Disney customer, but it's more establishing or firming a base, right? And then what does Disney do to react to that now? Or do they view it as a demographic or a market that they want to be in? Because the other thing with manga or with anime is that I'm pretty sure, I don't know, this might be a completely ignorant statement, so I'm going to preface this, but I'm pretty sure it's cheaper to buy than than it is for Disney to develop. Like Netflix could go out and get shows from Japan for cheaper than maybe some of their other content where they have to buy Friends and stuff like that.
Sure.
The marketplace is probably like sitting there going, all right, give us money. We don't, this is how much we kind of want, and it's not $100 million. You know what I mean? So from Netflix's point of view, it's content that they put on, it's an audience they get, and it's probably at a way lower buy-in price as far as getting those hours and getting those eyeballs.
Yeah, that's for
sure.
So
I think that's their corporate strategy, right? And now somebody else is in the market going, well, Disney are not even acknowledging this, and we can buy this and try to go to war with that base. Right? That's where the power play is happening, and Disney are saying, we don't even want to put our foot in that pool because we own everything else.
And the thing is like we need to remember is anime is so versatile. There's an anime for every age group. You have your anime that's for children, your anime that's for teens. You have your adult animes. You have your animes that are for women. You have your adult animes that are for men. It's so versatile. So you can get quite the library going by buying licenses from Japan. And, you cut your costs. You have a good license. You market the shit out of it. You air it. You sell some shit. Tyler sells some shit, and everyone's happy.
Ghost in the Shell, baby.
Oh
no! Hey, Netflix released Ghost in the Shell this year. They did a 8-episode series with it or something like that, and it was good, man. I enjoyed it.
Yep. But that's the thing.
They're releasing more.
Yeah. So I can see the anime market becoming a lot bigger, and one thing that's really blocking anime, and that's, we've talked about this in the past, and this is an issue with comics, is here in North America, it's the attitude towards cartoons or comic books. It's the, it's for kids argument. And, until we move past that, I think that there's a ceiling to where anime can take us. But I do think that it is a bit of an untapped market that can, I'm not going to say seed the winds of change in that streaming space, but it can for sure make a dent and make a lot of people a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that you're right, that cartoons have this weird attitude towards them in scare quotes the West, for lack of a better term. And yeah, like anime is very much just like it's grouping all anime together has always struck me as weird because it's just like a subset of cartoons.
Yep.
And because it's an animated show, yeah.
You have your action. You have your action adventure. You have your soap operas like Marmalade Boy, like full-on soap opera. You have your slice of life. You have your everything. So I don't understand like just because it's drawn and with characters with big eyes, everyone lumps it as anime.
Well, I can tell you, it originates from the actual unveiling of it into our culture in the 80s.
Yeah.
All right.
Probably
my generation. And we used to call it Japanimation.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Macross Saga, Robotech, G-Force.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that got imported, and it was a style, and they were all largely the same type of show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then we called it Japanimation, and that made the category that evolved in anime. But I think it's that overarching, well, that's anime, and there's no recognition of those subcategories or those age groups, right?
You're right.
It's just a sloppy label that people slapped on it.
Yep. All right. So that's that. Like I said, I think that this is an untapped market, and it'll be very interesting to see how Netflix and Funimation deal with their anime properties. Let's jump to movies. So I'm going to need a little help, guys, because I've read this article, I've read this headline, and I still don't understand how this is showing WB anything, and that is the theater chains in the USA want to slash the prices of movies if they're WB, and this is in retaliation of the movies being simulcast on HBO Max. So how are you showing them? How are you sticking it to WB if you're slashing price on your own product?
Maybe if the deal is a percentage of sales to WB, but even then it's cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Exactly. And these are companies that are bleeding. They say they can't even make it to January, and they're pulling this bullshit. Like, I don't understand what the fuck these companies are thinking of.
I get it. You know what? This is the play. All right? It's a combination here.
I love how proud you are, FYI.
No, I'm thinking. I'm like literally digesting it and thinking. So I'm gonna guess. It's a guess.
Okay.
But here's the deal. They drop the prices to hurt Warner Brothers. All right? They're hurting themselves. You're right. They're hurting themselves. But they drop the prices to hurt the contracts and everything like that goes on with Warner Brothers. Like, obviously those films are gonna have to come out of theaters sooner. They're going to go into streaming. That changes their whole revenue stream, everything like that. But here's the brilliance in it. They're dropping the price, which means that every day is going to be $2 Tuesday for the movies if you want to go see a Warner Brothers movie. Which, you know what? That puts more scratch in your pocket. And what are you going to do when you're at the movie theater? You're going to buy pop and popcorn. It costs you a total of 10 cents, and you charge them full price. So therefore, your highest markup profit item is going directly into your pocket, and you're shooting Warner Brothers at the same time and playing havoc with them. But you're still hopefully raking in the eyeballs, because a cheap price, we all know, discount Tuesdays. Hey, guess what? Theater's going to be packed. I'm going to go on a Friday or a Thursday, because I don't want to be around people. I don't want to be in dank and moist theaters. Blah, 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 blah. But this way, that can be the only way that I can see this being thought of as a good move in a boardroom.
Yeah, does that work?
I don't know, but they probably have data that supports it.
Hopefully.
But these are the same companies who had data, and they're going bankrupt.
I don't know, man.
I don't think I can blame movie theaters for not forecasting a pandemic, right?
But they were going bankrupt way before the pandemic.
Well, they had problems in their industry, yes.
Cool.
That's the only silver lining I can see. how somebody would sit there and go, how do we justify this? And so, well, we want to hurt Warner Brothers, but if we get a lot of people into a movie theater and we give them a cheap experience, then odds are they still have money in their pocket and they're going to buy candy bars and all this other stuff that you can buy at the dollar store, or you can buy it here for $7.
I think Phil's on to something. But I think it's more of a Hail Mary and less of a cold, calculated, like, we've got it. I think it's more of like,
Yeah.
This industry is in Hail Mary right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is literally just
why,
throwing stuff on the wall.
Don't, like, if I were a shareholder to these companies, I would say, fuck you, don't do that.
I would have been out as a shareholder so long ago. I would have been like, what? I can sell the stock still?
Yeah.
Really?
Let me go buy
when you look at the
Red.
AMC numbers. If you look at the numbers that AMC are posting and the forecast and the money pit that it's dwelling in right now, it's not good, people. Like, I'm telling you, I don't know what fund manager is going to sit there and go, oh, you need another $1 billion? Sure, we've got that for you. Like, they're on their last legs and they're openly like, we're done in January. Like, this is going to be a chain that gets bought up or bought out by Disney and then remodeled, like a company like Disney. I'm not saying that Disney will do it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be one of these movie houses, Warner Brothers, I don't know who buys them or buys a large percentage of them.
Legally speaking.
And remodels them and distributes, because as Tyler, we've pointed out, a lot of that law got off the books this year where the studios are allowed to own theaters again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
there's a lot that has to happen there.
Yeah. I just think that that's the long play, and you let it fail, and then you try to go in and pick up what you can. Because let's face it, too, a lot of these theaters aren't really owned. They're owned, like, they're not owned by who you think they are. They're not owned by AMC. AMC rent those spaces from places like malls and things like that.
Yeah.
The true owners of the theater are the property holders, and they lease them out to AMC.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot going on in this space. It's not as we want to break it down as black and white. There's a lot of factors in here, and there's a lot of people that can push and pull.
Yeah. I just don't get it. Like, for me, it just makes zero sense. This is, like, at this point, when you're near bankrupt, maybe this is the time to, like, say fuck you to a company like WB, right? When you're going bankrupt. It's like going in a, blaze of glory type thing.
Yeah, but it's a proven template to get people in.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. Like, I think in a non-pandemic world, that strategy might pay off way more. I just think the pandemic now, it should be enough to scare the shit out of people from going to a movie.
But, then we look at the States.
Yeah.
Florida is like, oh yeah, gonna be a $2 movie. I'm gonna get in there. I'm gonna sneak in my bourbon.
Oh, good point. Yes.
Florida man says it's the way to go.
I'll tell you what.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Sticking with movies. Hey, people are finally watching Tenet. Go figure. People are not liking the movie. Go figure. Christopher Nolan isn't an artist. Go figure.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. I would argue that it's like my ongoing thing, which is artists are often only as good as the people who say no to them.
Yeah.
And this reeks of a movie that not enough people said no to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like essentially people wanted a Inception double. Reboot. And they let Nolan do what he wanted. And, this isn't the first time that Nolan's done this, The third Batman movie,
Interstellar.
I feel like that movie, the longer the movie went on, people should have started saying no to him. It was a good movie.
Oh, that is an epic. It was. I had a great time watching that, but that's probably been one of the movies that I've enjoyed from him the most.
Yeah.
because it was fun to rewatch it.
Yeah.
With Tenet, I've watched it once.
Yeah.
As a first time viewing and a person who's avoided almost anything about this movie other than what we've reported on, or what we've talked about. I wouldn't say it's reporting. What we've talked about. I've just been like, okay, I don't really have an opinion about this movie. So I watched it and I was like, that was cool. That was like a summer blockbuster, right? Like, let's go in, sit down, watch it. Action. Oh, they tried to give me something to think about.
Yeah.
And that think about subject is going to be I have to watch it at least one or two more times in order to validate it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good enough movie for me to go watch it or invest in it that many times to get the desired, buy-in from me.
I
just don't think.
completely zoned out and forgot what we were talking about. I know, I remembered again, but for a second there, I'm like, what the fuck is he going on about?
No, I just you have to
No, I
watch
just
it
meant
a
in
few
general.
times, right?
I meant in general.
No, you gotta get people in to buy the candy bars. I don't know. I just don't see what all the fuss was about. I don't see what the fuck the fuss was about. I really don't. It's not that good of a movie take the stand that he did and make the comments that he made. Like,
well, I think he wanted his ticket sale dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he wanted his bonus.
Yeah. He should have just
creatively
company.
gone about. Well, he should have just gone to the studio and negotiated. It's that simple. He should have just done what they did with Wonder Woman and say, "Hey, look, guarantee me this, and you could do whatever the heck you want with it."
Oh, I don't think his ego let him. I mean, I think this entire thing is a story of ego.
Yes, that's true. But it cost people lives and health. So,
can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you honestly imagine getting COVID because you went to go watch Tenet in the theater?
It'd be the best. It would be the best 2020. All of it. We've made it. 2020, guys.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate all of this.
Yeah, it would be like imagine if you could prove and then you litigate that.
I actually watched Tenet the day I cut the tip of my finger off, and I was coked out on painkillers, and I was like, yes, I have solved this movie. And that's why I understand it, is I think that I was high, and I'm like, oh, I see the Matrix here. I see what you've gone for. It's still bad, but I see what you tried to do.
So funny.
Yeah. I think it was exactly what we talked about with Chris, in that they thought it would be really cool if we filmed a fight with one person in one period of time and the other person in the other period of time. Yep. And then we do that like 4 other times.
Well, it's that, yeah. And then it's, I want to ride on this boat. That's the new fastest boat in the world. And they were like, fine, whatever.
Yeah. It really was about getting these epic. It's becoming more and more like Michael Bay films for me.
Yep.
It's like, okay, we're just going to, okay, now we need to get this. We need to get this type of actor. We need to do this. This is the formula that we're going to plug into.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, I know with Michael Bay, I'm going to get these huge sweeping shots. These type of actors, I'm going to probably see Megan Fox's butt. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's a formula that he has. And I'm like, okay, it's on Netflix now and they call it Six Underground. Guess what? It's still going to be the same bullshit. Like, it's going to be Michael Bay.
Six Underground.
I mean, I agree with you. And I would argue that, how to put this? I would argue that, yes, Nolan's shots are less busy than Michael Bay's. Like,
yeah. Oh, if I had to choose to watch one, I'd probably choose to watch Nolan's movie, because there's probably going to be something that makes me think a little more than Michael Bay.
Well, yeah, he has his quasi-intellectualism going on, at least.
Yeah.
Michael Bay really wants you to know about Romeo and Juliet laws. He's going to stop the movie so you know about a way to Sleep with a Minor, Michael Bay. Do you not remember that? He did that.
Yeah, I know.
He stops a Transformers movie to explain Romeo and Juliet laws to you.
Wow.
Let's get to the next topic because I'm losing it.
Reboots in movies and video games.
Sure. Fuck it. Everything's meaningless. Next topic. No. So we talked about this a little bit, and I'm gonna regurgitate Phil's point a little bit because I think this is where we want to jump. And Phil basically said, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit for the sake of the conversation, so you can come back to us. But Phil basically said, what is the difference between rebooting these movies, which get various levels of pushback? Sometimes people are like, yeah, people are like, seriously? Versus rebooting video games, which, broadly speaking, tend to get a lot more popular support.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that about right?
Yeah.
So, and I think there's a differentiation. And the differentiation comes from ludonarrative synergy, which is that rebooting a movie and making it more pretty does not actually fundamentally change the experience. It can be a prettier movie, but at the end of the day, it's still a movie. Because video games have a ludonarrative interaction between you and the object, a reboot remaster that fundamentally changes some of those actual functionings is a more of a change in kind than just redoing the movie is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. However, I get annoyed.
Sure.
This is me putting my customer hat on.
Yep.
I do get annoyed with the cycle of it. That's all. Where
Hey,
it's
Phil.
like, okay, we have a PS4 and we have this game, let's say whatever. And then, okay, now there's a PS5. Now you got to buy that same game again. And then when the PS6 comes out, you're going to buy that same game again. It was the whole GTA 5.
GTA
right?
5. GTA.
Last of Us.
On PlayStation 3, there were 3 GTA games.
Yep.
Since GTA 5, it's been on 3 generations of consoles.
Yep. That's what bothers me, because you're not changing the way. It's one thing if it reboots and it's reimagined. Like it's okay, we're going to take it from it was in this time frame or this city, and now we're going to reboot that game engine or update it, and we're going to tell the story in a different way and whatnot. Then I can buy in on it a little more, because I'm like, maybe I'll spend my $80 on that. But if it's the exact same game, that's where I get a little bit crusty as a customer, because I'm like, oh, now we're going to, The Last of Us Part 1, right? It came out on the PS3, and then they did the remake. And it's like, well, we're going to add on bonus content, or we're going to give you
for the counterpoint then. So if you were, let's say you already owned Assassin's Creed 3 on PC, let's say. So you would have been thrilled with the remaster, because you owned it on PC. They were just like, oh, you get the remaster.
Right.
Versus, and the remaster, I think was basically an excuse for them to put it on the Switch.
Right.
Which they were like, look, if you own it, I think it was you owned it on PC, you got the upgrade for free. And I think if it was on console, you could get like a DLC that was a lot less than rebuying the full game. And the Switch, you just had to buy the full game again.
Those are creative ways around the issue, yes.
Yeah, that's less bad in your viewpoint. And then
consumer, yes. Like if you give me a break on the new features, then I'm more prone to take a chance on it or spend money on it. But
or 7,
the same.
Or Final Fantasy 7 being functionally, it looks like it's actually a sequel.
Yeah.
But that's a whole separate
different
thing.
game.
I want to talk about it with someone at some point.
Because canonically, that end of that thing implies it's actually a sequel. Because we've changed major plot points through time travel.
And what's his name? Sephiroth. He knows. I've gone through this before. I must not fail this time.
So does Eric.
exactly. So
and Jack doesn't die all of a sudden.
that's
Like a major character still alive.
yeah. So not only is this a remake, but it's kind of like a sequel, retelling, continuation of it,
Yeah.
without it being Advent Children. So
I thought Advent Children was okay. Advent Children is also canonical now.
yeah,
Because that's who you kill, is those final 3 bosses. You kill the 3 of them.
yeah.
Here's
exactly.
the reason why I don't have a big issue with that, per se, as a reboot. It's because it got time to breathe.
Yeah.
All right, and it was so old. It needed the brush up. It deserved it because people had such a high buy-in. I don't argue that kind of stuff. It's the cycle when it's the churn
Yeah.
that bothers me.
Yeah.
It's not like if you told me next week Ubisoft, you know what one of my favorite Ubisoft games is ever?
Said no one ever.
Well, Beyond Good and Evil.
Oh yeah.
That's
that.
Awesome game.
but that's such a weird.
I know, but
weird
if
thing.
they've been playing around with the idea of rebooting it for a couple of years now. It's always been popping into my news radar where it's like, you're kind of activating a studio, and we think it's going to be Beyond Good and Evil, new reboot.
Yeah,
whatnot.
for me,
I would be totally in for that.
If they, if Kojima and Konami can get along, and if they redid Metal Gear Solid, just hook it to me, hook me in. I'm in. I'm sold.
Yeah, I just want to see more original stuff. Like I'm gonna say, it's Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah,
And things, new worlds, new experiences.
Here's
new
my
memories.
issue. Here's my issue with a lot of like the reboot, remakes, whatever. And I understand that there's something to be said about an existing brand, regardless of how good or bad that brand was. There's brand, what's the word that I'm looking for? Brand,
familiarity.
Yeah.
Awareness.
Brand awareness. Thank you, Tyler. So I understand that has a lot to do with it. But why, oh why, can't they just take these ideas, change them up a little bit, create new characters, put it in a new, neat little box, and call it something else, rather than this constant nostalgia, reboot, remake, redo?
Money. Capitalism.
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely, I think that's one of the few things that, and we're going to go a little political now because you can't not. One of the few things that Canada does broadly really well is that, because we have a series of artistic funds that you have to be creating a new thing.
Yeah.
And those and our current government, to their credit, has pushed a lot for that to include comics and video games, which historically it didn't. There's a bunch of legitimate criticisms about the whole process. But compared to a lot of other countries, we have grants for new creators and new properties.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to, right? Is let's say you are making a new Spider-Man movie. It's easier to get investors because you're like, it's a new Spider-Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier to get marketing coverage because it's Spider-Man again. You start with a pre-existing narrative in the media space, which is, here is how ours is different, versus having to sell an entirely new topic.
Yeah, like Tarantula Dude wouldn't sell well.
I was going to go with Nightcrawler or Night Monkey or whatever it was.
Oh yeah,
Knocked Monkey.
Yeah, you're right. It's unfortunately it's economics and the constant need to feed at the nostalgia bucket.
Yep. All right, guys. One more topic before we go, and this one again might get a little on the political, but I want to hear what you guys have to say and think about this. And that is, earlier this week, Twitch has announced that they have beginning to ban certain words like simp and incel and all this. And that is to create a safe space for gamers and viewers and everyone. So obviously right now there's a lot of people who are saying freedom of speech. But we always have to remember there's a big difference between freedom of speech and terms of services.
Well, so I want to break that down into three things because I know a lot about this actually.
Yep.
And the first is this is not the first major terms of service update with a political implication amongst Twitch. Twitch has very strict rules already regarding the Israel-Palestine conflict.
Yeah.
And I believe there's some pretty banal criticisms of either side that can get you banned from Twitch for life. I think that my understanding is that if you call Israel a colonizer, you are banned from Twitch. And already they're limiting political discourse.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. And then, as Boris said and alluded to, there's a big difference between government censorship and terms of service agreement. There is the law of the internet that if you don't do any terms of service, your place inevitably becomes overrunning with Nazis and monsters.
That's what happens at TikTok.
It's exactly what happened to TikTok. It's what happens, like, if you run a freaking forum for car repair and you don't have a terms of service agreement, you end up with a lot of Nazis.
Yep. They even made a joke about that on Mythic Quest, the show on Apple TV. And it was actually one of the funnier episodes because it literally dealt with Nazis.
And then kind of the third part of this is that it's the paradox of free speech. There's this argument that the solution to free speech is more free speech. But when you look at the difference between, let's say, Phil makes $1 million a year and I make $10,000 a year. In this instance, undeniably, Phil is upper class and I am lower class financially. And let's say we're both in the same forum. If someone calls Phil whatever epithet, and he's a millionaire, it's going to mentally affect him a lot less. And if it does affect him, he has a lot more tools and resources at his disposal to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, $10,000, if someone says something really mean to me, maybe it's like, in general, I'm in poverty. I'm probably also food insecure, which means that mentally, I mean, if you're hungry, anyone can say, if you've been over hungry, your brain does not work as good.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, like, I get attacked on there, and it just is worse against me. And then that maps across almost every power structure we have in the world.
Yeah.
Whether it's ethnicity or gender identity or however you want to do it. So failure to account for that means that you end up with people who are in positions of pre-existing power chasing out everyone who is an other.
Yeah.
And you see that happen on Twitter, where, like, you lost a bunch of people who were from various victimized groups. And then the counter is how they don't have to be a victim. They can just leave the internet. It's like, sure, if I left Facebook, despite the fact I regularly get people attacking me and trying to dox me, I would lose 30% of my take home.
Yeah.
But but instead, I just get to deal with the fact that, like clockwork, about once a month, some bigot finds me and tries to get on me for being an openly bisexual dude.
Yep. And
it happens. And I imagine Boris gets similar of, like, the racial bullshit. And you've talked about it, getting angry about it.
Yeah.
It's just like clockwork. They just find you.
Yep. 100%. That's exactly how it works, unfortunately. So you brought up some awesome points, really good breakdown. And that's the thing, like, I think it's always important, and people need to remember that there is a big difference between freedom of speech as a American thing. It's not a Canadian thing to us, like, freedom of speech per se.
We have a legal limitation to freedom of speech that is very clearly enunciated versus theirs.
Yes. The important thing is that freedom of speech, you don't get thrown in the gulag for saying something stupid out in public. That's what freedom of speech gives you. It doesn't allow you to go on Twitter and start throwing N-bombs just because.
Yeah, you can't attack somebody. And honestly, with this announcement, okay, it's good that they're staying on top of maybe some newer
Yeah.
words or things like that. I just get annoyed at Amazon or Twitch
Yes.
in the sense that they go and they delete thousands and thousands of hours of
Sure.
streamer stuff because it violated a company thing.
Sure.
And then they softball protecting people from attacks like this in
100%.
a way, like, well, in a month we're going to update this and this is going to be that, but we're just arbitrarily going to take all of your revenue or affect your actual livelihood that you're earning off of our systems.
Yep.
And we can just arbitrarily do that. That doesn't sit great with me.
That is.
I'm glad. Yeah.
That's honestly a
it's
fantastic point.
ethically.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I so strongly support breaking up these monopolies, right? Because in an ideal world, you'd have Twitch and YouTube and maybe a couple others more directly competing, which would then get you some more nuanced views and it would encourage better whatever.
That's exactly it. Because it's essentially being monopolized by one or two companies, everything comes down to those what those one or two companies think is right and wrong. You don't have this group thought, this partnership between a shit ton of companies thinking what the best approach is for us. It's literally right now we're being dictated so much by Amazon, by Facebook, by Google. These are companies who own their space and they dictate to us what's right and what's wrong.
And own like a bunch of space, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't go. Sorry, you can. Complaining about YouTube through your Gmail account.
Yes.
Is a weird
It's a weird flex.
Shit.
Yeah, it's a weird flex.
It's not a flex. It's just like, oh shit, right? And I'm not saying Google does censor you for doing that. I'm saying Google has the capacity to censor you for doing that if they really wanted to.
Yeah. Having said that, all hail our Amazon, Google, Apple overlords. Thank you for keeping us on your platform.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's what it comes down to, right? Well, and the other side being, if we really want to talk about it.
Look at the terms of service that Amazon put up on our face when they asked us to be part of their initial launch for the podcasting channel. We weren't allowed to talk ill will of Amazon and any Amazon subsidiary. Like, that is our entire show.
Yeah.
Our entire show.
Like
a quarter of it.
It is like a regular discussion point, right? Like, I'm not happy with the way Audible did something, which is Amazon, or Twitch, which is Amazon, which is, it's easy to not perceive how deep the actual roots go, and the same with Google, and the same with Facebook, and you look at, there's Instagram, there's WhatsApp. Facebook isn't just an app itself. It's a lot of different companies. Oculus. There's a lot of stuff happening there.
Yeah, there's a lot
going on.
Try
to put censorship on that, and I'm. It's one thing to be censoring words that are hurtful, and it's another to be censoring critical thoughts about companies.
But here's the thing, though.
Things.
Here's the thing, and this is, I think, going to lead us into the last discussion point, and that is, it's one thing putting up these guidelines, and then it's another thing being proactive about actually helping someone who asks for the help. Hey, I'm being abused by this group of people. Help me. No, you're on your own. No, you're on your own. Like, how often do you hear these stories of, and there's a can of worms I want to open. And it's with a new platform that's out there, and that's OnlyFans. But this is exactly the conversation that I want to have, but I think we're going to save it for another discussion.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think that actually, briefly, just kind of 2 points I think that are good for us to end on. Number one is, I think that the competitors on podcast sources, or what are they called? Podcast
the feeders,
aggregators are there. Yeah. Feeds, thank you, feeders. That competition kind of demonstrates, and Amazon put that TOS on us, it's not as strictly enforced as it could be.
Yeah.
And I think it's because like we'll go to iTunes and or Feedly and or whatever, and that is one of the few places that, you know, if we're going to do capitalism, you got to have competition in the right way, and that's one of it.
Yeah, but capitalism competition means Google or Alphabet just owns the competition too, and they're in competition against each other.
Well, and that's why I'm pro antitrust.
I know.
Like that's why I'm pro. Like no, Google gets broken up.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like that's the world we live in. Like if you actually follow the money, there's like 4 companies that own everything.
Yeah, like all news media in North America is owned by 5 companies.
Yep, and Sinclair Corp has like 89% of them. Those. Yeah. Anytime
when
you see
Disney's
those,
another one.
Yeah.
And AT&T.
Well, they got their own issues right now.
Sure, but they own a lot of stuff.
Yeah, DC Comics on top of it all.
Mm-hmm. Warner Brothers.
Yep.
Everything. Yep.
My other point is, and this is one of the few points that I haven't changed my view at all on, and we've been talking about it since like I think the 3rd episode of the podcast, which is that if you're a creator, you got to be careful with what platforms you're on.
Yep.
It's so easy for one of these platforms to change the algorithm, and suddenly your career is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see this so often. Oftentimes, I think it just happens because a creator gets comfortable with a platform and, they're making money, but they don't see growth. They don't think that change can happen. And then change happens. And then look how many creators lost a shit ton of money. And I know we were talking about this when YouTube changed their terms of services like 5 years ago, and the monetization became absolute shit.
Or
they even did it this year too.
Yeah.
They changed the child viewing stuff right in January, and it completely collapsed in the Lego community.
Yeah,
because we just didn't know what we're allowed to show and what we're not allowed to show, because those episodes are created for adults, but now they're going to be classified as kids, and now you're in violation of kids terms, which means your channel gets demonetized, shut down, and it's just a weird space.
Yep, exactly.
And it forced a lot of change, because now Jang Bricks has a specific format that he has to follow when he produces his show in order to keep it out of the radar, and he's gone to a Patreon platform.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of changes that instigated out of just a tiny segment of YouTube. So
and Patreon's been good thus far, but there's no reason to say it can't get bought out or the CEO decides to change the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. You have to be very careful about what platform you're in. I think that's something that honestly has always resonated with me when you originally said it. I'm like, you know what? That is probably the smartest thing that you can tell an up and coming creator.
Well, yeah, look, like if you're getting traffic on YouTube, make hay while the sun shines, but understand it can go away. And I mean, and I learned it from like the Penny Arcade and PvP guys, because it happened to them like in 2001, 2002. It just keeps happening to people, and it's whenever possible, have stuff you control.
Yeah, it might cost you more money. Like look at us, for example, right? Independently run. Mm-hmm. We don't really rely on anyone per se. But it comes out of our own pocket.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's also you're gonna lose some people, right? Yeah, like, say if you're on YouTube and then you're like, hey, I'm gonna have this private video on my website. You're not getting the benefit of YouTube. You're just not. Even if you get ad space on it or whatever, it's your discoverability goes down, and that's the devil's bargain. But then you hope kind of to reach the level of, let's say, Neil Gaiman, who like you have so many fans that like fuck it, just do whatever you want because your brand is enough.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And I think that is a perfect place to leave us. Thank you so much for that, guys. Phil, how about you tell our awesome listeners where they can get a hold of us?
Well, of course. Well, you can find us on the internet at www.itscanonpodcast.com. You can track us down on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at It's Canon Podcast. You can email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com. You can subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Intune Radio. Anywhere you find podcasts, you're going to find the It's Canon Podcast show. If you like what you hear so far, be sure that you click the subscribe button so you can also be included on all of our 12 Days of Christmas and wacky episodes that we produce, along with sometimes we have our weekly specials. And as well, please leave us a rate and review on any of these sites that allow you to. It's greatly appreciated. It gets us more ears. And thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you, Phil. Guys, officially, regardless of what the plan is, this is the last news episode of 2020. Any final words, Phil?
Be safe out there.
Tyler?
It's a fucked up world.
Take control of your own stuff.
Yep. Those are great words. Good words. I want to thank each and every person that has listened to us for the past 7 months. Again, I brought this show back simply because I had a lot more time on my hands again. No more traveling for work. I was home. We were in the middle of a pandemic, and I felt like I needed a little bit of geek therapy. So I was going to do the show alone. And so I'm grateful and thankful to Phil and Tyler for coming on board. Tyler, 5 years. I can't believe that we've been doing this on and off for 5 years. Thank you so much. And Phil, honestly, you and I, we've done some pretty amazing stuff over the past 10 years with the Red Patch Boys and other projects. And it means a lot that I get to geek with two of my better friends. And I just want to thank all of our listeners for listening. Like, honestly, however you find us, whether you know us or you're a fan, thank you so much. You guys are honestly the reason why we make this show and why we produce so many shows in a week. And that's because a lot of people ask it from us. And if we can get that one person sending in an email and saying thank you, honestly, that makes the world for me, and I'm sure for the other two guys. We're really appreciative of all of the support that we've gotten in 2020. 2021 is going to be an awesome year. So the next time you hear us, it's going to be for Mando Monday, the rest of 12 Days of Christmas. Be sure to check out our Christmas special, and then we have the best and worst of 2020, and that will take us into 2021 and whatever 2021 gives us. So thank you, everyone, on behalf of Phil and Tyler. Good night.